Hey gang, welcome back to the channel. I am Brian, and today I'm bringing you yet another power station review, and this is the UIBI. I don't know, you can tell me how to pronounce it correctly, but I'm going to go with UIBI. This is a 700 watt continuous rated power station. I chose to review this for two reasons. One, this thing is 45 cents a watt hour, so this is by far the cheapest power station that I've ever reviewed here on this channel. And two, I kind of like the looks of it. It's kind of got like this little retro vibe going on, and it doesn't look like it's built on any of the same assembly lines as so many of these other power stations. So there's a lot of different things about this power station. So that's why I chose to review this, because it just kind of piqued my interest. So right now on Amazon, this is $399 with a $100 off coupon, bringing it down to $299. And this has a 666 watt hour lithium ion battery built into it. I really wish they would have put 667 or 665 watt hours, but it's got 666 watt hours inside it. So that equates to, again, around 45 cents a watt hour when you do the math if you get it for $299. That's a really good deal, and I'll just go ahead and give you a spoiler. This thing did great in all the testing, but I will show it to you to prove it to you. But let's move in a little bit closer, and I'll kind of go over some of the buttons and what you're going to get on the front of this power station in terms of output and input ports. So to turn this thing on, you just kind of have to barely press this little button, and it kind of blinks for a little bit, and you get a really different display. This looks like a lot of my 12 volt display meters that I have, but it's going to give you a red, yellow, and green battery capacity type gauge, as well as a percentage and a time to empty. So it's got, you know, basically everything that you're going to need, in my opinion, on a little power station like this. But you do have your DC button that you can toggle on and your AC button that you can toggle on. You've got your charging port for your input here. You do have two USB-A inputs here. One is a 2.4 volt, one is a 1.5 volt. You've got a USB Type-C power delivery 30 watt output, and you have a USB-C power delivery 100 watt input and output. So this is bi-directional. Then you also have your DC output here, which is a 12 volt, 10 amp, 5521 port. Then you got two AC outlets kind of covered up by these little dust ports, which in my opinion, I mean, I guess they're nice to have, but they're kind of more of a hassle because you got to kind of fiddle with them to get them back in. And then you've got your 12 volt, 10 amp cigarette style output as well. And then of course you're going to get your fancy light, and the button for the light is on the front, but you got a couple of different modes, and of course your flashing mode and your SOS mode, which we all love. Now this handle does not fold flat all the way. I'm assuming that you can probably take it out, but the way this thing is built, it's got rounded edges, so it's flat up top for a portion of it, but most of it on the sides kind of comes down on a rounded radius type curve. But you know, it's got a handle on it, whatever, it is what it is, but it just looks kind of cool to me for a handle, I guess. Two vents here and two vents on that side for intake and outtake to cool the unit down. And that's about it for what you're gonna see on the front of this unit. All right, so now let's get into some of the testing that I did on this. And number one test I usually always do is the capacity test. So I wanna see how much this battery actually puts out from its rated 666 watt hours. So to do that, I hooked up my DC capacity tester. I charged up this unit to 100%, and I let that DC capacity tester run this battery all the way down until it shut itself off. What I was able to pull out of this unit was 560 watt hours, so that equates to about 84% efficient, or you're getting 84% of the actual rated watt hours inside this unit. Now 84% is pretty typical, kind of industry average for all these power stations. There's lower and there's higher. 85 is kind of the middle of the road, middle of the ground type result. So it's not a bad result. For a unit this size, a lot of folks are going to be using this to power like a 12 volt compressor style fridge while camping. So I wanted to make sure that there was no DC cutoff function built into this unit. And the reason that I do that is because some of these power stations do have a cutoff function built into the DC side of it. And what that means is that in the middle of the night, this thing could actually cut itself off, thus turning off your fridge and potentially spoiling your food. So I wanted to make sure that this did not cut off my fridge. So I hooked up my 12 volt compressor fridge. I let it run overnight and a little bit more because I kind of forgot about it. And when I came back after almost 17 hours, this thing was still running the fridge. So I can safely say that you're not going to have any issues with this little power station running a 12 volt compressor style fridge. So now let's kind of move into the AC inverter of this power station. It is rated at 700 watts. Nowhere in the literature did I find a surge rating, so I'm just going to say this is 700 watt power station. Now for something this small, I don't recommend running anything anywhere near 700 watts, but it's capable on paper of up to 700 watts. So to kind of get close to that, I hooked up a 500 watt space heater, and it ran it just fine for about 5 minutes, then I cut it off because it was getting hot in here. And then I hooked up my multimeter, and I was getting around 113.3 volts running that 500 watt space heater, and it was also putting out pure sine energy, as you can see here. So, you know, it puts out pretty decent amount of voltage for almost its full rated capacity, and I was getting pure sine energy out of this, running at almost 500 watts off of that heater. So I'm going to give that a pass for the AC inverter side. And it was not loud at all. The fans were on. I did not take a decibel rating meter of it, but to my ears in an enclosed garage, it did not seem overbearing or overly loud. So I do think that you would be able to probably put this in a room or next to your bed if you're sleeping for a CPAP machine, and it's not going to bother you too much, in my opinion. And then so to check to make sure that all these ports kind of work together and that you can hook up multiple things, I hooked up a little bug catcher to the AC inverter side, turned that fan on. I hooked up my iPad via the USB-A and started charging it. I had a USB-A little light bulb connected to it, and I was also charging this unit via the USB-C port from my other power station. So I was kind of testing two things. It was doing pass-through charging just fine, and it was running multiple items all at once. So you can hook up multiple items to this just fine. You can use the AC inverter and the DC circuitry together in parallel, and it works just fine. And you can also charge this unit at the same time. Now, something this small, this does not have a UPS feature, but those are kind of more geared toward the larger power stations. So, you know, yeah, it doesn't have a UPS. Now, let me put this down and kind of talk about charging. So it does come with a brick. There's not the internal charging brick built into this, so you do have to have a brick with it, which is essentially this little contraption here that you're going to plug into your wall and then plug this into the end of it, and you're going to hook it up and you're going to charge your power station via the AC wall outlet. I was able to get around 80 to 85 watts worth of AC juice being put into this from the wall outlet, and that's going to take a pretty long time to charge this. You can, and I'll show you what I did here. I hooked up a 100 watt USB-C power delivery charging cord as well at the same time as I was using the AC charging. So I was able to get around 180 to 185 watts worth of charging. So you can charge USB-C and AC at the same time to kind of double up your amount of watts you're putting into this unit. And this also comes supplied with a DC charging cord, so you can plug this up to your truck, to your RV, to your car, your van, whatever. Now this is going to pretty much be regulated by whatever your vehicle is you're plugging it into, but typically they're around 10 amps, so around 115 to 120 watts most of the time off of this. But honestly, I hardly ever use this that come with all of my power stations. I just kind of throw it in the bag and forget about it. And this also does have a built-in MPPT charge controller built into it that can accept up to 200 watts max worth of solar. So it's not the PWM old school charge controller. This will take a 200 watt solar panel and maximize its efficiency to charge this thing again at up to 200 watts. So folks, that's why I decided to review this little thing, because again, I thought it looked kind of cool and kind of different compared to all my other power stations, and I've never heard of UIBI, so I agreed to them sending this to me for me to test it, and I didn't see anything wrong with it, and I don't really see anything for this price point that I would have them change. I mean, yeah, a lot of people don't like this handle on top. You know, whatever. It's 45 cents a watt hour. You know, the screen's kind of cool. It's a different screen. It would, you know, the screen could be a little bit bigger, but it's bright enough for me to see, so I don't have any issues with it. And I like that they used a different display than all other power stations. It just makes it kind of look neat, in my opinion. And you know, got the bidirectional power delivery. You know, the USB-A's could be quick charge, but they're not. But you do have those power delivery ports. So, you know, give or take a few things. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised with this little guy. I wasn't expecting much out of it, and it did great in all of its testing. And, you know, again, and I keep stressing this, for 45 cents a watt hour or $299 for a 666 watt hour battery station, to me, that's a pretty good deal. So go check it out if you're interested. I do think it's a good deal, and again, it did really well on all of its testing that I put it through. So I can't knock it for really anything. Folks, that is my little review on this UIBI 700 watt power station. I hope you found it useful and informative, and we will see you soon. So take care, gang.